Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's April 17th, 2019. I'm over in the work area and this is another episode of Ask Me Anything. It's been a while since I've responded to comments and questions, so today I'm going to answer two questions. One has to do with, do I replace the top bars in the top bar hives, our Warre hives for the honeybees, once I've captured a swarm and put the swarm inside the hive box? And the other one's about composting cat litter, how to do it safely and all. So the first question is from Nort J.E. Hi Kevin, very nice video, thanks for sharing. Can I ask you if you remove the box without the top bars later or added the top bars eventually? Or did you leave it completely empty? Thanks a lot. And this was in response to a video, and I'll try to find the video, put it in the link in the upper right hand corner, where I captured a swarm, probably in one of the fruit trees around where all the hives are, around the honey hut. And what I do is I try to get the area where the swarm is completely attached, so the queen's engulfed inside of this mass of bees, and I bring that over and I gently set it down inside of a topless top bar hive. In other words, the top bars are the areas where the bees construct the honeycomb, which the nectar and pollen goes in, and we end up harvesting honey if all things go well. So what I do is I have a couple of boxes on top of the topless bar that have intact tops, that have intact top bars in them, and there's often some honeycomb that I leave in those ones, as well as some pollen, honey as well, so that the bees can set up shop right off the bat. But I've already set the branch or the stem that has the swarm on it down in the lower box. Now I've tried this a few different ways. I've tried it like a day two after I've captured the swarm, taken the tops off the two hive boxes on top of the topless box, and set it to the side and put new tops on it, or remove that box entirely. And I haven't had as much success. Probably 50% of those swarms will abscond. They'll just leave because I've disrupted their environment. They're trying to create a safe environment, a new home, and I've changed the temperature, I've changed the pheromones inside of the hive. So I've disrupted their setup, and they elect to leave for whatever reason. So I don't do it within a couple of days. After a couple of weeks to a month, I will usually go in, and usually at about a month now, because I have a greater success if they've been in there for about a month. They've really built a lot of comb, the queen's been laying, and all things have been going pretty well. Well, they set up shop, they have it pretty much established. I try to do it at a time of day where the temperature variation isn't going to be crazy. I do it carefully, and I'll go in and either replace the tops or have another box so that the hives that are the comb that's being constructed in the queen is at the same altitude. I'll usually have another box that has the top bars already there. I'll pick up the two boxes on top where they're completely functional and intact, set it to the side, remove the box and the branch that's sitting down below, and replace that with another box that has the top bars on it. Carefully replace the two boxes on top of that, and so far that's been pretty darn successful. I try to disrupt them as much as possible. Now, I'm not a typical beekeeper, as I've explained in other videos. I consider myself a bee steward, so I'm not looking to doing a big harvest. I'm looking to learn as much as I can about the bees through observation and careful and mindful interactions as well. But thanks so much for the question, I really appreciate it. So another question I got regarding cat litter, Lamika L. Sorry to put this question here, but could you do another breakdown of composting cat litter? I use walnut shell litter for my two indoor cats, and I live in Hawaii. I put full cat poop bags on the soil, and the earthworms make holes and turn the contents into black gold. I do want to make sure it's safe, but I've already started using it once it's cured and become earthworm filled. What are your thoughts? Great question, Lamika. So it's hard for me to answer this without going into lots and lots of detail, and I'll probably put an image on the screen showing the life cycle of Toxoplasma Gondii, which is a coccidian parasite that's similar to Isospora in dogs and all. But there are many different pathogens that we think about being in animals. And so if you consume animal products, any of the animal products, the chicken, the meat products, whether they're fish, they're poultry, they're pork, or they're beef, there's pathogens in those food sources, most likely. Lots of studies been done showing that. That's why it's so important for us to cook our foods at the appropriate temperature for the appropriate time. So I'm going to talk a little, I'm just going to basically focus on, well, first I'm going to say some basics about composting. We do 3 different types of soil building here using paper products in a slow soil building system, and using wood chips in our Back to Eden system for doing slow soil building. And we do sheet mulching and another form of slow soil building. We do vermicomposting, which I'm probably going to be phasing out. I may not be doing that much longer because of the time, what I get in return for the amount of time that I spend. Now, vermicomposting is a great way, and I think it's a pretty darn safe way as well. However, the bulk of what we do, and I'll try to put a link in the upper right hand corner to a couple of these videos where we do composting, large pile composting, small pile composting, and my small piles are pretty big piles, and weed composting, all of those things. And there's all different manures, including cat, dog, chicken, pig, horse, alpaca, camel, peacock, turkeys, and I know I'm missing a bunch. So there's all kinds of different feces, and these animals although are well cared for, you know, we always want to take all the necessary steps when we're trying to eliminate pathogens and weed seeds in our soil that we're building, because that soil is what we're growing all the food around here in. So we use a thermophilic type of composting, and so thermophilic composting means that we need to achieve a certain temperature for a certain duration of time in order to eliminate pathogens and eliminate seeds. So the hotter the temperature, the shorter the period of time. So you could basically throw cat poop into a pressure cooker, and in less than 30 seconds time, or less than a minute's time, have eliminated all pathogens in there. So that's just to give you an example. Now, when we're doing our thermophilic composting, I'm looking to get our temperatures above 145 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 63 degrees Celsius, for at least 5 days duration. But it's really important that when I do this thermophilic composting, because I'm using these 3-foot temperature probes and putting them in different locations in the piles, well, the outer surface isn't at that temperature. The bottom surface in contact with the ground and the top surface at the top of the pile, none of those are at the same temperature of the core temperature inside. So we want to make sure that we're turning the pile frequently enough that we're maintaining these prolonged periods of the desirable temperature for the appropriate duration of time. So that's really important for us to do, because our compost is the beginning of life, our life cycle here on the property. And although we take animal manures in from other locations, because we're building this all on top of a big gravel bed, big bony sandy soil here. So that's how we're doing it, and that's something to be aware of if we want to eliminate pathogens. Now, a little bit about Toxoplasma Gondii, which most people have been warned, their physician has said, geez, if you haven't been exposed to Toxoplasma in the past, a woman in the household, and you're thinking about getting pregnant, well, people used to say get rid of the cat. But we know now that the cat, who is the definitive host for Toxoplasma Gondii, although it'll be in all different other little species, including birds, because earthworms can take the oocysts and they can move it out of your pile in your garden or in your compost pile and move it into a different part of your property because it hasn't achieved those temperatures. So the cat, within the first 3 weeks of becoming infected, will shed unsporulated oocysts, you can think of them as eggs, into the litter box or into the soil. Since they're unsporulated, they can't affect you. So that's why people, if they're cleaning your cat litter every single day, there's minimal chance that you're going to become infected with Toxoplasma Gondii. So frequent cleaning of it, but that doesn't eliminate what happens, because once those unsporulated oocysts hit the soil and they're in that environment and they're warm and it's moist, like temperate or tropical environments. We live in a cold temperate climate, but they're here. So the unsporulated oocysts become sporulated. And then it goes through the rest of this life cycle, and I'll put an icon on the screen to show a little bit of the life cycle. And so those unsporulated oocysts can remain in the soil even with our harsh winters here with really sub-zero degree Fahrenheit temperatures. Those oocysts are still viable. And the cats really help them because it's natural for a cat to dig a hole for the feces and cover it up. So now we've created that nice moist environment, warm moist environment for the oocysts to sporulate. So a cat, once they become infected, will shed those unsporulated oocysts for about 3 weeks. After they've been infected and exposed, you don't have to worry about those cats shedding them in the feces any longer. So that's a really good thing. However, there are so many indoor-outdoor cats, and most cats become infected after weaning when they start doing some hunting and consuming some meat where a different life form of the toxoplasma is encysted in the muscle tissues and all, and then they become infected, and then once they're infected and it sets up shop inside of their gastrointestinal system, in the lining of their intestinal system, then they can start shedding, but only for about 3 weeks. Then they're safe after that point as far as spreading Toxoplasma Gondii. So that's something. Now, I know you mentioned, Lamika, that the earthworms move into the bag of the poop there and break it down and make it look really good. That's absolutely fine if the cat wasn't recently infected with Toxoplasma Gondii. And since they're indoor cats, and you can go to your vet and have them do an IgG, IgM test and see, geez, were they infected a long time ago? Great. If their serology is completely negative, they haven't been exposed, they haven't been infected, unless it was just in that couple of day period beforehand where they haven't developed an immune system. But an immune response rather. So those are the possibilities, and so most people will talk about Toxoplasma Gondii. But given that, there are many indoor-outdoor cats that are putting tons of feces all over our environment. There's feral cats that come to gardens. Can you think of easier soil for them to use as a litter box? Children's sandboxes are another place for cats to deposit their feces as well. It's really ideal litter spots. It's easy to dig up and cover up and use, and then they'll keep coming back to those same locations. So it's pretty darn tough to eliminate the whole process, but the one good thing is that they're only shedding those unsporulated oocysts for about a 3-week period afterwards. Now, does this mean you need to completely fence off your gardens and all completely so the cats can't get in there? That's tough to do. Even if you're doing compost, and many people do composting in bins or in tumblers, and they're slow composting systems. So let's say they've got the pallet type bin set up, and they're just gradually adding material, leaves and grass clippings and animal feces or whatever it is, or kitchen waste and all, and they put that in there. Well, the earthworms will go in and take some of that information, take some of that stuff, and if there's cat feces in there that had been sporulated oocysts because it had been after it had been in the environment for a couple of days, then the earthworms can consume that and bring that out and bring it into other areas, and a robin may get to it or whatever, and a cat may get to the robin, or the whole life cycle can continue. So those are my thoughts on it. I hope this is somewhat helpful. There are things that can be done if you live in a really sunny environment and you really want to make sure that and you don't have the space, the time, or the desire to build big piles like you see me building, and turning it maybe twice a week in some cases when the temperature really gets up there. So there's a possibility of actually creating like a solar oven for the cat feces, or materials that you're worried about about pathogens as well, and you really want to have the clean compost. So you can build basically a solar oven, which isn't like the one that you would cook in and cook a pot roast in or whatever, but if you got good solar exposure, good southern exposure in the northern hemisphere, you can create an environment where we're hitting temperatures. If you're hitting up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 or 5 days, you've eliminated all of those pathogens and most of the weed seeds in the material there. You just have to build yourself a system. And I think I posted a video a few years ago. I'll see if I can find it. It's hard for me to find all my videos now. But on how I built a passive solar thermal heater. And I actually have some. I'll probably do a video on some of the solar thermal heaters, that if you're in a good sunny environment, you can use glass and a black metal material back before. That'll heat up the black metal. That'll push a lot of hot air through a system. That hot air can go through a container where the compostable material is, and it'll heat it up. You could create an anaerobic environment if it gets so hot in there that the non-beneficial microorganisms, the anaerobic microorganisms, may take off, but you will at least have killed all the pathogens. So I hope this was helpful. I know this video is going to be long, so I better get to stop now. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Give us a thumbs up if you found this of value, and by all means, folks, have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.